I became a full-time professional photographer at the age of 23, and honestly, saying this out loud seems surreal. Hi, my name is Ren, I'm a photographer here in Japan, and I'm now 24, so it's been almost a full year since I transitioned into full-time. Today, I want to share my journey with you on how I started taking photos in video games into now having photography as my career. And I hope that along the way, my story will inspire you. My story with photography actually started earlier than I expected. When I was about 14, I spent hours taking photos in video games. At that time, I didn't think much of it. I was just having fun with the camera mode. But now looking back, I realized how much that helped me develop an eye for composition, even before I ever touched the camera. By the time I graduated high school, around 18, I had only taken a handful of photos on my phone. But during our graduation, we hired a photographer, and I decided to show him some of the photos that I took in video games and with my phone. And he told me that I seemed to have an eye for photography and invited me to try his photography course. And I was like,
I don't have anything to do after high school, so why not?
so I gave it a try. That decision changed everything. I joined his basic photography course, where I learned all the fundamentals, how to use my camera, shooting in manual and stuff like that. But I still remember, I think it was around the first or second lesson that I ever had with him, he talked about duck photographers. He said that ducks can fly, swim, and walk, but they do all of those in a clumsy way. And a duck photographer would be a photographer that wants to do a little bit of everything, but they're not great in any of them. And sitting there in the very first class, I thought to myself, I'm gonna be the best fucking duck that I can be. And it's funny because that mindset stuck with me since day one. From there, I kept moving through his courses, from editing to lighting to eventually the intermediate course, and each step gave me tools, how to edit properly, how to set up lights, how to think of photography beyond just pressing the shutter. But after 2 years of courses, I started to feel a little stuck, because although my photos were technically correct, they were well exposed, true to tone, they were all looking the same. And that's because my mentor, who is an amazing old school photographer that came all the way from the film days, he focused a lot in technical precision, and because of that, my photos started to look like his. And while there is value in that, knowing every single setting, understanding all the technical details, for me, something was missing. And it was lacking me. That changed when I attended a workshop by a Tokyo photographer I admired. She had a different approach. She focused more in style, in expression, different editing, and she also pushed me out of my comfort zone because we shot with a foreigner model. At the time, although I was considered fluent in English, I was really shy to speak it, and having to shoot with the foreigner model gave me the confidence to finally get out of my comfort zone. So I started reaching out to foreigner models and doing collabs, and slowly I got more confident in my English, but also I started building a portfolio that I liked. And I say that that workshop was a turning point where I began to develop my own style. Around my first and second year of photography, I started getting little jobs here and there. I still remember the happiness when I got my first paid gig, and I'm also super grateful to my friends who supported me. Some modeled for me and some even hired me to take their photos. And each year I was getting more and more paid gigs, but it wasn't nearly enough to make a living off of. And honestly, it felt impossible, but one mindset that kept me going was the consistency is key. I really believe that the more time I spent, the more I practiced, the more shoots I did, the more consistent I became, higher would be my chances of making it. And that belief, that mindset, kept me pushing even when things felt uncertain. Fast forward 1 or 2 years after the workshop, I was really proud of my style. I was happy with the results that I was getting, but I still wasn't making a living. That's when my partner at the time suggested me reaching out to agencies who connected tourists with photographers. I applied to an agency and got accepted, and I actually started doing some gigs through them. But back then I was still living in Hamamatsu doing factory work, and I started skipping work days to go have photo shoots. And eventually my work got tired of it and they decided to not renew my contract, which means they fired me. The funny part is, I was planning on quitting a month later in order to move to Tokyo and have more opportunities. But I was still uncertain about it. And them firing me made me had to take a decision, and I decided to go for it. So it's kind of like, in a way, it sped up, although it sped up my decision, I still waited a few more months before I moved. I finally moved closer to Tokyo in October of 2024. It was a gamble, it was a risk that I decided to take, because if it didn't work out, I would have to move back to Hamamatsu, but gladly that's not what happened. Now, almost a full year later, I'm actually in 4 agencies, and I also have my Instagram and my website, which I get shoe requests from. And sometimes people ask me about my journey, and I say that I'm doing photography freelance full-time, and I tell them like, hey, so far it's working out because I haven't gone homeless. And yeah, that's my journey, that's my story. I'm now almost reaching a full year since I transitioned to photography full-time, ever since I moved close to Tokyo. And I've got to meet so many amazing people, I've got to experience so many amazing things, and I'm extremely grateful for it. And I honestly think that one thing that made a difference was my consistency, was my mindset of trying, even though when it felt like it was impossible, I kept moving, I kept pushing. And it's funny because back when I was still learning, still trying, me 3 years ago, it felt impossible. But now that I'm doing it full time, I realize that I've achieved it quite early, and I don't take it granted. I know it's, I guess, in a way, consequence of hard work, but also I'm not gonna get comfortable with where I am right now. I honestly feel like, at least for me, if I get comfortable with my situation, that's when I'm gonna get lazy, and that's when things can go wrong. So I always try to improve somehow. Now I'm getting into video, cinema, I'm trying to expand into other type of photography as well. And I hope that my journey has inspired you. I honestly hope it did. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.